9:13 a.m. Amber, do you want to call roll call? Just verify we have a quorum.
Yeah, I can do that. Amber here, Sarah.
Here.
Bridget.
Here.
Pat.
Here.
Christy.
Here.
Tina.
Here.
Michelle.
Here.
Jen.
Well, we know Jen's here.
Jen's here. Okay. Tim. Darcy. Janet. Val. Rhiannon. Diane. Elizabeth. Okay, that gives us 8 members present, which is a quorum.
Okay. Did everybody get a copy of the minutes from the last meeting and review them? Did anybody have any issues, concerns, edits, changes?
The only one I saw is Daryl's last name. Isn't it Millner? 2 L's?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. That's it.
Anybody else have any comments on the meetings from last meeting minutes?
This is Pat. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes with the correction.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
It's Michelle. I'll second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Should we do a roll call vote since I really can't see everybody on my screen? So, Amber, do you want to run a roll call vote?
I can do that. Kind of bear with me as I'm doing secretary. Amber, is it yes or I?
Whatever you prefer.
I'll go yes. Yes. Sarah?
Yes.
Bridget?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
Christy?
Yes.
Tina?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
And Jen?
Okay, Jen is having a hard time. She can hear everybody, she can see you, but she cannot get sound. So should I text her somebody's phone number so she could text any answers?
Can she use the chat box?
She doesn't see it on that control panel at the bottom.
Whoa.
For me, I have to click on the more, the dots in the more, and then there's a chat option. And maybe
And she's not see. She doesn't see the microphone. Those icons across the bottom.
Oh,
Oh, I see a chat. She said, I see the chat.
Great,
Okay.
great. He's there. Okay, gotcha.
We're just asking if you approve of the minutes. Hi.
Yes, perfect. Anyone else that I missed from attendance that's now here? Everyone?
I was going to point out, so we've kind of already covered where the chat is, but if you want to view more people, depending on what your view looks like, where I can see, I'm sharing my screen, I can see kind of a long strip on the side of my screen. And then there are different, if I scroll across the top of that, of the top picture, there's a grid view. There's the view I'm looking at, which is kind of stacked. And then there is a small active speaker video, and then you can hide it all together if you don't want to see anybody.
Okay, so I think everyone approved the minutes. And so then I think the next thing is the executive committee membership and nominations. So that's for chair, vice chair, and secretary. And I believe that those nominations would take place at the next, or those nominated individuals would begin their role at the next meeting. Is that correct, everybody? We all agree? That's how that happens?
Yep.
So do we have any motions for, we'll start with chair.
Sarah, are you eligible to be chair again? I mean, how many times can you be, or what is the term limits
I
on?
think twice in a row. And I've been, this is my first time.
Well, I moved.
Jen says I nominate Sarah.
I second the nomination. Sorry. I just think it's better we leave things as is as we're going through this particular time.
Hopefully I'll be more prepared next meeting because I'll have hopefully unpacked.
If you need help, just reach out. I mean, we can do that, contacting people stuff for you, okay?
Thank you. All right, so should we vote on each individual? Let's just vote on each individual nomination and then we'll move on to the vice chair. So should we just do a vocal vote instead of going through a roll call vote? All those in favor of me continuing to be chair, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any naysayers? All right, I think that is approved. All right, do we have any motions for vice chair?
And our vice chair now is?
Darcy. Darcy is our current vice chair.
Has anybody talked to Darcy? Is she still okay? Where is she? I'm pretty sure you guys are all in your first.
We're all on our first term. I have not had a chance to talk to Darcy lately. She's had a lot going on with this. She works for the state and she's got a lot going on with getting back to work.
Well, Jen just nominated Bridget, so it came up in the chat room. So I hate to put I hate to nominate or automatically put somebody on when they're not here in case something has changed in their life and they're not able to do that. So I would second Jen's motion of Bridget, if Bridget is willing.
Yeah, Bridget.
Did she run away?
No, I'm right here.
Oh, are you okay with that?
I don't know what it entails, but I guess I am.
Well, you would fill in for Sarah if she's unavailable.
She will never be unavailable, so yes, that is fine.
As of so far, I have been available, but, well, except there was that one phone call meeting that Amber had to take over.
From the hospital room. That was cool.
From her hospital room, yes.
From my son's hospital room.
Bridget has a message from Jen.
Yeah, I saw that. And I
Yeah.
did comb my hair this morning. So yes, I'm very glad.
I even put mine in rollers, but it didn't help me look alive.
I'm prepared to accept this honor.
Yay.
All right. Okay, should we
had a
do a voice vote? So we have a motion and a second for Bridget to be vice chair. Should we do a voice vote? All those in favor say aye.
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 All right, so starting next meeting, we'll have Bridget running as vice chair. And so then we have secretary. Do we have any, our current secretary is Amber. She's fantastic. And this is her first time. So she
Amber.
could be motioned in again.
I second fantastic Amber from Jen. Too late.
I like it.
Jen's quick.
I didn't even see that. She's fast.
She can type faster than we can talk.
Uh-huh.
And I'm looking at that chat box because anything she's doing, I'm seconding. So just.
All right, so we have a motion and a second for Amber. Do we have any other nominations for secretary?
Amber, you're okay with that?
Yeah, I'm totally good with that.
All right, so let's do a voice vote. All those in favor of Amber as secretary again, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any nays? All right, so that is Amber continuing in our secretary position, and she's been great, so. All right, next order of business is Julie's going to be presenting us with the Supporting Families Community of Practice. And this is my cat. She keeps bothering me. So we'll just hand it over to Julie.
Sure, thanks. I'm glad that we were able to kind of, figure out something for the meeting today, because when we started realizing after Daryl's resignation that this was, this is coming up and Jay's was likely not going to be attending, we had a little bit of a flurry of panic in the office. And so I said, well, I can maybe pull something together. So I appreciate you guys accepting that on the agenda, I guess, and letting me
Thank
join.
you for stepping up. We appreciate it.
Sure. And what I'm planning to share today is, I know that probably once or twice the council's had presentations on charting the life course and the trajectory and integrated support star and those things specifically. But what we're trying to do with the Supporting Families Community Practice is, we've realized that we've talked a lot about charting the life course, and that certainly is kind of what the community practices is based on, that framework. But we want to shine a little bit more of a light on what our community of practice actually does, how it connects to the larger national community of practice and what our goals are, and sort of really start connecting with family groups. And certainly the Family Council is representative of families all across the state. So I'm going to switch what I'm sharing on my screen here. Okay. And we'll get started. Okay. Can everyone see my screen, the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so like I said, this will just be an overview. I think it's around 20 slides, so it probably won't take a real long time, but so just kind of starting with that foundational piece of what actually is a community of practice. It's really a place to bring people together who share that common passion or concern, and they want to learn more about it, or how, what our best practices in the field, and how can we work together to accomplish common goals. That's the premise of a community of practice. And connecting those people who've never had contact. In a little while, I'll talk about our goals that gets a little bit deeper into that. And providing some forum for people to communicate, to share their knowledge with each other, and again, to solve those commonly identified problems and work towards those common goals. And just helping people organize around the things that they have in common, those interests that they have in common. So in general, that is a community of practice. And there is a national community of practice for supporting families. And the goal is to build the capacity through our community of practice through and within states to create policies, practices, and systems that better assist and support families that include a member with IDD across the lifespan. And so we have some project outcomes listed here. This kind of it's a very big picture because it's a national community of practice, but we'll get into in a few minutes more specifically how South Dakota is trying to accomplish those things, and how we're hoping that the family support, we can work together with the Family Support Council. I wanted to show this just because I wanted to kind of highlight some of the national partners that came together to form the National Community Practice. So the Administration on Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities, the Sibling Leadership Network, Self-Advocates Becoming Empowered, the National Association of Councils on DD. So our DD Council is a member of a national association, and so that is a partner. the Association on University Centers on Disabilities. So when you think of Center for Disabilities in South Dakota, again, they're part of a national association. The Parent to Parent USA and this NASDDDS is the National Association of State Directors of ED Services. So, and UMKC, where really the Charting the Life Course framework was born. So the community practice is really founded on the core belief that all people and their families have the right to live, love, work, and play, and pursue their life aspirations in their community. So we really, you know, this doesn't say all people with disabilities, because people with disabilities are part of the all, right? So things that would be beneficial to people with disabilities are likely going to benefit other people in those communities. So this is very intentionally phrased to not single people with disabilities out. So I have these, this kind of walks through the history of the role of families, and, you know, as family members, you know, you guys are familiar with kind of the path that families have been on over time. But just to kind of give a little bit of context, so there, it kind of lists the era, the understanding of family, and the disability services that were kind of available or that were in place to respond to that understanding, that level of understanding. You know, so we go from that moral blame was assigned to the parents and kind of pulling people with disabilities out of society, and progressing to, oh, well, we're maybe not taking them fully out of society, but now away from the family, because the philosophy then was that the family was really better off without that person present. You know, in the 50s, there was more emphasis on that burden of caregiving, and so that's really when you saw those therapeutic congregate services, and still a lot of institutionalization at that point. And then, you know, moving into the 80s, the families are really seen as a system, and some positive coping mechanisms were coming to light. And that's when you really see some of those community group residential supports. And I would say also like the day services and the, you know, segregated work and things like that we see. In the 90s, and again, knowing that the Family Support Council, am I correct in saying 94 is when the Family Support Council was established? I might be a year or two off on that. But, you know,
I don't know the date.
yeah, that's okay. So that was really, hang on, I think there's a couple chats and I closed that out. So that was really when the family movement started to gain some momentum, and families to support children to remain in those homes for as long as possible, and the development of family support programs for children living at home was established, which is really kind of the, you know, was the impetus for how family support came to be in South Dakota. And for further, yes, I agree, Sarah. I was going to say, and for a full history lesson, Brenda was part of all of that, and I'm sure a couple of you were too. So I'll let her cover that in a different session probably. And then in, you know, starting in around 2010, really the understanding of family continues to evolve and grow, and families are adapting and they're accommodating and they're resilient, and that they're, you know, we're starting to recognize that there are other emotional and physical and financial realities that families face when they have a family member with a disability. And, you know, the thing that really strikes me in disability services here is that, you know, over, you know, the last 10 years or so, we've come a long way in our understanding that family is often a main source of support and families don't turn over. You know, we are who we are because of our family, whether all the good, all the bad, all the ugly, you know, we are who we are, and our values, everything about us is rooted in that. And so we really have gotten better at identifying that. I would say we still have some room to grow in how we actually respond to it as a general system. But we know that families may need supports for the different roles they play in the lives of their family member as well. So this is probably something you've seen in those overviews of the Charting the Life course framework. But this is really, I think, a linchpin sort of concept when we're talking about supports to families, because we talk about these different kinds of supports people need, right? So families need support and people need support. Well, you can really break that down into these 3 types. So there's the discovery and navigation, and there's the information, and that's information and training. That's what you know and how you learn it, and the availability of that knowledge, of that information that you can go out and find, or that is brought to you. You know, sometimes we don't need anything but information about a topic, and then we can make a decision and we can just know kind of what's going on. The second bucket, and you'll see this, I'm moving from the middle to the left, is really connecting. And people and family members benefit people, and I think we're learning that more in the last couple months than ever. We really, our connections are so important. And you want to talk to others who have similar experiences, or maybe they've been in your shoes, or you're currently kind of walking the same path, and you have things in common, and you can bounce ideas off each other, or just be, you know, an ear to listen or a shoulder to lean on. Someone who can relate to what you're going through is invaluable. And then finally, we have goods and services, and those are the things that we connect with to make our daily lives possible. And that can be as simple as your alarm clock being a product, or as complex as applying for formal support services. And the analogy that really helped this kind of sink in for me, because, you know, for quite a while, people would talk about these 3 buckets, and it didn't really hit home until I started kind of course, applying it to something in my own life. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with MOPS, which is Mothers of Preschoolers. You know, they have chapters all across the world, really. But there's one here in Pierre, and I had joined that. And a couple years in, that's when I started to get more familiar with Charting the Life course. And, you know, it occurred to me that not only was I going to meetings and I was learning about topics that were pertinent to parenting, or, you know, childcare, or I was learning, maybe we were just doing like a crafty project, but I was learning something. And I was also getting a couple hours every other week to connect with other moms who had kids who were similar ages, or maybe their kids were a little older, they were a little younger, but we could talk about the miseries of potty training, and we could, you know, we really connected on that level. And then goods and services are the things that, you know, maybe I learned about something at MOPS and I went out and bought a product or downloaded an app or something, but there was something tangible that would help me in my day-to-day. Okay, so hang on, I'm gonna see if I can go back for a quick second. So the one thing I want to say about this is, you know, we've been very good in the DD system, and beyond South Dakota, I think probably all states, this would be somewhat true for, is we're really good at offering goods and services to people. But when it comes to helping connect people to information and training, or providing that as a system, or helping connect the dots between family groups or family members, those are 2 buckets that really our state system national system hasn't really been as conducive to providing those kinds of supports. And so one of the focuses of the community practice nationally, and we've had some really positive discussions within South Dakota in our state team as well, is how do we evaluate what we're offering to people and maybe try to balance what we're offering across those 3 buckets a little bit better. Any questions or comments or anything so far? I don't want to be just, you know. Okay. All right. So okay, so we want to talk a little bit about family support versus supporting families. So I don't want to read this whole slide to you, but you know, family support programs are traditionally geared towards meeting that specific need. And like I said, typically that has been goods or services, right? And so we want the goal of supporting the caregiver in order to decrease demand on long-term services. So as a program, family support, that's what it's designed to do. So we just sort of need to, as a member of the national community practice, we're trying to kind of find a better balance between the programmatic aspect of family support and how can we take into consideration the entire family unit, knowing that the program is designed to help the individual with a disability. So that's sort of the push and pull between the two. So in South Dakota, we have a community of practice state team. And I'll say that our state team is a little bit different. Well, in every state, the state team looks a little bit different. Ours has been really a sounding board up to this point. We have had some limited success with having smaller groups kind of pull together and focus on a specific topic. And we have a rather large community practice. So some of you may remember, and if you don't, then that's fine too. But we've been part of the National Community Practice in South Dakota since 2016. And I think it was in November of 2016, we had a big kickoff event in Pierre. And it was for 2 days, and we invited a lot of people. And what we learned after that, but it took us around a year probably to figure out that a state team probably shouldn't consist of 75 people, because it's just hard to get, you know, it's hard to get any real momentum going. But over the course of probably the next 6 to 8 months, we really realized that we'd pulled all these people together, and we hadn't really given them a mission or a here's what we want you to do. The kickoff event was very informational, and it provided that foundation of charting the life course. We had some really good conversation. We had quite a few family members attend, but we had a lot of professionals attend as well. And so we, like I said, over 6 to 8 months, we realized, and I will say that Lynn Rick was a huge part of kind of giving our DDD staff kind of the wake-up call that we needed, that the community practice isn't about, you know, bureaucracy and subcommittees and pulling all these professional stakeholders together. That's important, but we really needed to kind of pull back and focus on what our family's telling us. And so some of you also might remember we did, in the fall of 2017, we did some listening sessions around the state, and gathered a lot of good information. And so since then, our community practice, we've had some general goals and kind of focus areas. But to be honest, we've had some trouble getting, like I said, getting some real momentum going around those. And this is just a continual learning process, and part of this context of what is the community of practice that I'm talking to you about today is just to kind of help drive home that we do have this group, we have the interest, and we want to connect with families across the state. That can be difficult to do because as a state agency, our resources are limited. And so we really want to connect with the Family Support Council and all those smaller groups that exist all around the state, to kind of learn what are your interests, what are your goals, what is important to you, and how can we help, and how can we help each other reach those goals. So, you know, we want our state team members to understand and use the Charting the Life course thinking. So it's not just about filling out that trajectory. It's not just about that piece of paper. We really kind of want to think in those terms. And I've used that concept with my 10-year-old son, talking about, well, you know, playing video games all day, is that going to get you, you know, closer to or further away from gaining more privileges with mom and dad, you know? So there's just all kinds of applications for that. So we want state team members to really be able to speak to that and speak to other people about that. And we know that people are in all kinds of stages of their life and stages of learning about that. We want to put together an infrastructure for other stakeholders to learn about that framework. And we have gained a lot of capacity over the last few years, I would say. That's one area that we've made really significant progress in. And when we talk about innovation areas, there are other states who have focused on support coordination and how can Charting the Life course be used in those roles to help support families better, as one example. And some other states have also focused on how does Charting the Life course apply to that whole intake process and application for services. You know, instead of how can we streamline that, and instead of making 8 calls to figure out Social Security applications and Medicaid and state services and programs, how can we streamline that and make it easier? Because we know that families are tired. It takes a lot of energy to do those things, and sometimes it's just hard to ask for help in the first place. So if you have to go through a lot of hoops to do it, people are more apt to just give up and continue to sort of struggle in their own situation. And we also want to leverage and bridge those national community of practice opportunities with our state stakeholders to learn from other states and to take advantage of that technical assistance that we have access to, so we can kind of help bolster up what we have going on in South Dakota by learning from others. Okay, so we have a few, like I said, we have a few goals, and I already talked about this a little bit. I'm gonna grab a drink really quick. So, this idea of a hub of self-advocate and family leadership in South Dakota, we know that there are lots and lots of families out there, some who we know about and lots that we don't, who have support needs, and they might not know about paid services. They might not want paid services, but we really want to be, like I said a few minutes ago, we really want to connect with them, and we want to help them connect with one another. We want to create some platform for people to really get those common goals established. And this is really about making the voices of families louder. So, you know, when there's legislative session happening, that what families need is also a focus of what legislators are hearing, not just the one-sided sort of effort. So we are making some headway in creating a stronger partnership with all the policy and excuse me, partners in policymaking graduates. And I'm sure that there are several of you who have been through, if maybe not all, if not all of you, who've been through partners. And we're also getting a little bit more strategic and thinking about, rather than saying, hey, do you want to be part of our community of practice? You know, what is it that people, what is their interest? What is their passion? And how can we help them kind of foster that? And how can they help us reach other people in the state? So what is it we want families and self-advocates to do when they show up to those meetings? And I think we are getting better at having some meaningful conversation and getting some real concrete feedback during our state team meetings. But for a while, it was really just, we're providing some updates, we're talking about what we want to do, but having trouble getting moving on it. We have offered some online Good Life groups so families can connect and learn about Charting the Life course, how that can help them in their daily life, whether it's advocating at an IEP meeting or just thinking about the future, because the trajectory, that creating a vision can be, I need a vision for next week, or I need a vision for 10 years from now. It can really be used in so many ways. So how can the family support play a part? You know, tell others, you know, just that the Supporting Families Community Practice exists. If you know about and have used the Charting the Life course, any of those tools, tell people about that experience. And if it, you know, if it helps you out, if it helps you kind of reframe a conversation or a situation or your own thinking even, that's just helpful to kind of share and spread the word. If you know when and where families are planning to gather in your communities, that would be really valuable for us to know, so we can go to families rather than expecting families to come to us all the time. And of course, as a Family Support Council member, you're representing all families in South Dakota already. And so we're really interested in how to bring those of you who are Family Support Council members and have participated in those state team meetings. How can we connect those dots better? So the state team is getting input from the Family Support Council as a whole, and helping, you know, lead our goals and efforts as well. So I mean, I'm going to take a minute and just kind of ask if there are any ideas or questions or things that that are kind of going through your mind about how we could maybe better collaborate on this particular goal.
Julie, I have some questions if you have a minute.
Yeah.
So the structure for this, you said you initially had a very large group,
Mm-hmm.
and then you stepped back. And so now, is there a core group that generally kind of works around this topic?
Sure. So I will say it's a little muddy. So we have for our state team meetings, and I think I started to say earlier, in every state, the state team looks a little different, but ours, I would say, is particularly large when you look at the list of people who received that state meeting invitation. But we do have a core group of ambassadors, and I can talk about that as well. But ambassadors are really, that's an opportunity to take, it's a several-month online course. There's coaching sessions. And so ambassadors are people who have taken the time and gotten a certificate of completion in that course. And we rely heavily on our ambassadors. Although I will say, you know, as our group gets larger, we're going to have to figure out, because not all of those people can commit the time and the attention because they have other jobs and other roles, and they're applying Charting the Life course in their everyday in other ways, but they're not able to give as much energy to that specific community of practice goals as we kind of need the manpower for. So it would be really nice to have, we have a small group, and you know, Brenda, Eileen Roberts, we rely on them a lot. And then we have myself and 2 other DD staff. And I would say between the 5 of us, we're kind of thinking about the state team agendas and the goals and activities. And there are a few other people who kind of, come in and out. And that's very helpful and we welcome it. It would just be nice to have kind of a solid core planning group. So it's just been hard to kind of get people to stretch their time and resources accordingly. Yeah.
Julie, this is Pat.
Sure.
Lynn Rick put me on to the core group as the member from Family Support 360. And so in the beginning, I attended your every other month meetings, which generally run, noon to 2, something like that.
Yeah.
And I would, after you would send out the minutes and stuff, some of you may remember that I would send you what Julie had sent to me, that what our meeting was about, what we had discussed, the small groups that Brenda was running and Elaine was running. I hope that somewhere in the future, we could add as an agenda item this on to what the whole, since we are the representatives of the people of South Dakota who have people with disabilities in their families. I think it's part of what we should be discussing at our quarterly meetings, is what are they doing at Community of Practice? What can we do to help? I know Arlene asked me to run a community meeting in Brandon, which, unfortunately COVID came in and kind of put a kibosh to that. But I think, the reason I sent them to you guys, and I know Jay's is also on the committee, is so that you could look at it, see what we're doing, and maybe have it be an agenda item that we can figure out where, as Family Support members 360, we can contribute to this group to help get the word out that it even exists.
I agree with you, Pat. I think that's a fantastic idea. I would like to see us have a couple of standing items that are always prepared and ready for the council when we meet. I am interested in numbers. I want to know how many families are being served, where are we at with our, any individuals on waiting lists. I would like to see that, and that probably requires a motion of some type, but to have these standing items that the department always prepares for the council, so that we begin to get a knowledge base of what does the programs that we are helping influence look like across the state. And then our work's going to be more targeted. Well, when you're talking about some of the things you're talking about, Julie, it's like and I'm a school person, so I'm always going to be, that focus of when families leave the school systems, they enter this, very open and uncharted path. And so how is this great group, this Communities of Practice group, are they being supported with someone from education? Is there someone from the special education side that can be part of that group? Because I feel like that's, for the family members that are on this council with kids under 21, that's the big cliff. We step off it when we leave our schools. And so if this group, to me, and I'm kind of excited about this just idea right now, but it's like if this group could help with that cliff to make those connections like you were talking about, how do you get Social Security? How do you get Medicaid? Schools kind of know, but they don't know it really well. And once families leave schools, they don't know how to do it. So that would be a fantastic piece as well. So,
again, this is Pat. Julie could put up the list of people who are team members, behind their name, it'll say team members. Then it will identify who the ambassadors are, which is a great source. It'll identify the different things that have been looked at or discussed. But I think it's important that, is it once a year or twice a year in Kansas City, the Community of Practice meets as a group from the nation. And so then you get to see what other states are doing that we could bring back to South Dakota, because in a way, South Dakota still is in its infancy, I think, when it comes to things that other states do for families and how they do it and how they, because we're such a rural, spread apart state. If you're looking at states like New York or California, or, how they attempt to do things, I think if we have people that are looking at the minutes, are making sure that you know who the people are that you can contact, that can help other people, because parent to parent, everybody's on there. The last time I was there was a representative from all of the major players around the state, I think. So it's if you want to get involved, there's so many different ways you can get involved, by being an ambassador, by going to Kansas City, by just by attending the every other month meetings that Julie sends out notices on to invite everybody.
Well, to that point, and that the annual meeting this year unfortunately was canceled because of COVID, and so they've done 3 sessions. Well, we've done 2 sessions already. Virtually, and another one is coming up on Tuesday. And so I can certainly share. So we have to pre-register, and maybe what we can plan is to kind of share a summary of what was discussed at the next Family Support Council meeting, because I think you guys wanting to what I'm hearing, at least from a couple of you, is wanting to have kind of a standing item and maybe an update from the community practice. I think, conversely, we could have a standing item on our community practice meetings from the Family Support Council. And so to have a representative attend and kind of say, here's our most recent meeting, here's maybe what we discussed, or here's a hot topic with family members. And so just so we can communicating better. But yeah, the annual meeting with all the states when they come together is it's a really good opportunity to learn and to hear really inspiring, motivating stories of what other states are doing. So that's always very energizing, and the virtual ones have been really popular as well. Okay, so I'm gonna talk about, there was a mention of some of the other partners that we have in our state, and I want to mention that, so I'm just looking through kind of my notes. I did not include the ambassador list, but I'll talk a little bit about who we have kind of along with this goal. So our second goal is to initiate and or further develop our relationships with private and public partners. And so, South Dakota is a small state. Everyone knows everyone, even though we might be very spread out. We have family members involved in the ambassador series. We have the aging, so our state division of long-term services and supports. We do have an ambassador from the Department of Education. We have some providers who have gone through the ambassador series. So we have a good mix. I would say that I would see more family members, but I understand, some of the difficulty with probably some of the timing of the ambassador series, and everyone's busy, and so unless you have the dedicated time to go through it, and there's a coaching webinar, there's some homework. I would say it's a few hours a month, which doesn't sound like a lot until you're in that month and trying to, balance everything that's happening in your life. And we have been able to connect, in our Department of Ed, there's the early childhood, and we have connected them to their peers in other states. I think it was Pennsylvania, just to kind of talk a little bit about how Charting the Life course applies to those early childhood goals that the Department of Education has, and how what they're doing is supporting families, but could it be enhanced by maybe looking at it that Charting the Life course lens, and maybe just shifting their practices a little bit, not necessarily their goals or policies, but how they do what they do every day already. And again, how can council members participate or play a part is taking opportunities to use that Charting the Life course, again, problem solving, advocating, and talking to people about the community practice. If you know, we've had several teachers or special ed directors reach out who maybe went to a session a year ago and really were energized by the concept and had some ideas on how specifically they could use it. You know, if you think there's somebody who would really gravitate towards it, you know, share it with them, talk to them about it, point them to our webpage even. And we have a couple ambassadors who have used this and had to lead conversations with their pastors at their church about being inclusive in you know the services and the Sunday school classes and things like that. So so I was going to mention, and like I said, I'll send out the list of ambassadors so you have a full list. It lists their name and where they're located in the state, as well as their email address. The way it's formatted, it's just on a PowerPoint slide. So for spacing, I didn't put what their affiliation was, but they're available and very knowledgeable. Is there anything else? Oh, I wanted to mention that, you know, on our community practice state team, we do have Parent Connection. We have the Center for Disabilities represented, Disability Rights South Dakota, the Department of Education. We have the Department of Health Right Starts. There's a representative from them. But again, it's kind of similar to what I mentioned earlier with, for some of those state agencies, they haven't really, we've got to figure out a way to kind of help them see how it connects to what they do day to day, rather than just being a meeting that they attend every other month and that they're learning about something that DDD is doing. We want it to really grow and become something that is used with you all. So any questions or thoughts on this? You know, those two, how can you play a part? Ideas are, they're pretty broad, but if there are other things that you guys know of or have ideas or want to talk about, we certainly can. That's what we're here to do.
I just have a quick question.
Sure.
There is a Facebook page for, it's not an official Facebook page, it's for South Dakota's family support families to kind of come together and just provide information to each other, bounce ideas off each other. And I try to share the community of practice things into that page when I see them. But I haven't seen, you know, I share the star, I share the buckets, I share those things, but there's really no explanation. You know, I can share them and I can kind of explain, like, this is helpful when you want to do this, but
Sure.
you know, I've had a lot of training through Family Support Council, of having Brenda come in and having Lynn came in and kind of explain these things, but I haven't seen like a little webinar or a little YouTube video or anything like that that really would help the person who's never going to come to a family support meeting or never going to make it into a COP meeting, and just those families that are out there that, yeah, they'd be interested, but they have no idea how to use it. And I'm not the best trainer of that. And I don't want to be the person that's like, oh yeah, let me show you how to use that, and then them doing it way wrong. So I'm just wondering if that's like an option that's been discussed, is like having like an instructional video, like a YouTube or a Facebook little thing or Facebook Live or something like that.
Yep. That is something that we have talked about. The challenge from my point of view, and I'll kind of, you know, Brenda, if you want to chime in a little bit, because she's done a lot of sit down meetings with other family members and will sometimes ask for permission to record it or, you know, to take a picture of their information or something. But we have talked about kind of doing more of those short snippets rather than posting the link to an hour-long webinar. We are doing some lunchtime webinars, but, you know, that's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, or they won't be available. So I think doing those short kind of, here's what I did, here's why I did it, and here was the result. You know, maybe 5 or 10 minutes would be really helpful. And that's something that we can explore further. Sometimes it's hard to, so a lot of people are really not comfortable when you ask them to make a video. They really get like, no, I shouldn't do that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be on camera. So I think just figuring out ways that, you know, there can be a slideshow and it's just their voice and it doesn't have to be their, you know, their face.
Right. Right. I don't think people are looking at someone like to stare at their face, and I mean, they want to see it in action. You know, if you could do like an animation even of how it functions.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. And I think that's something that we should continue to figure out and
I shared the star a lot during COVID. Like, look, you know, all of these things are unfortunately not accessible. How can we access things that are going to help our family members or ourselves if we're the person with a disability during COVID? Because gosh, a lot of those services were not there. They were non-existent. And so I was trying to push forward the star in the group that, hey, you know, take a look at this star. This can help you pinpoint things and those actions and those services that you can access while you're stuck at home or your family member's stuck in their residential facility. So, I mean, that would have been perfection time, but even now, you know, if we could come up with something and we can start hopefully getting this out more. And again, I shared it, but I wasn't the best person at explaining this is how you do it either. So,
and sometimes that's hard to do over social media because it can become so long. And then if you have to click on that, read more, people sometimes just keep going.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
So Julie, just to add in, we have, our focus was kind of on doing different regional training in different places for families and for professionals. We would plan one for an afternoon, which we got a lot of professionals, and then we'd plan an evening. Or a Sunday, we did in Aberdeen a Sunday. But still, you know, South Dakota is a big state. And so for people to have to take the time to drive someplace, it was kind of a challenge. So I tried doing an online Good Life group. And actually good intentions, and had a group of about 6 that would be great to work with online. But due to some illness and also COVID kind of turned everybody's life upside down at that time. But I do think that's a way to go, is doing some online, especially over the next while. And also we did talk about doing short video clips so that people could watch it at their convenience when it worked for them. I was also, when COVID happened, I mean, everybody's life kind of stopped. And in one day, Derek didn't go to work, didn't go volunteering, didn't go anyplace. And all his routines that made his life kind of flow were done. Everybody can relate to that. And so we did a Facebook Live of a trajectory, trying to use the trajectory to develop a new routine. And then we did another Facebook Live to say, now, what are the resources and supports available to us during this time? And we did record those. So I can send a link to those.
I think this did get shared on our COP Facebook page too, but it's been a little while, so we have to kind of dig for it.
But it's, you know, it certainly wasn't planned, it wasn't scripted, it was just, we got to do something because life is upside down. And
I'd love to share those on the family support page.
Yep. And then the other part that we did that isn't as life course related, but we can certainly share those too, is we have been having weekly conversations, Derek and I, with Dr. Karen Harvey, who works in trauma-informed care. And it's like, how do we cope through COVID? How do we cope with not going places that we're used to going? We're kind of grieving. How do we deal with grief and loss? And those, I've got a link. We've been recording those, and Karen's given us permission to share them. They're about 15 minutes a piece. They just talk about a lot of things, and she is awesome. So we can share them as well.
Okay, so I'm gonna move to the next slide, but really quick, the last thing I want to say about our public and private partnerships is really kind of the core of this goal is to, much like the family network, to really identify and understand those common goals across different state agencies and community organizations and work together to accomplish those goals. So often I'll attend a meeting and I'll hear from the Department of Education, or I'll hear from some other group that they're working on something that really closely aligns with something our department or division is working on. And instead of, two groups expending a lot of energy to do almost the same thing, how do we work together so it meets the needs, and it might not be exactly, we might also, have to do kind of our own thing over here to meet the needs of our specific populations, but how do we kind of break down those silos? So that was the last thing I wanted to say on that one. And then our third goal is identifying opportunities within DDD to use the community of practice and charting the life course as a mechanism to achieve our goals. And so some of the things that we've done so far, I mentioned the front door, the kind of the intake process. We have been trying to figure out, it's a long, windy, bumpy road, but trying to figure out how to make our processes for applying for services, who do you contact, who do you talk to, how is eligibility determined, all of those complex processes, how do we make that a bit, at least a bit more accessible and family friendly. So, and we also are considering how do we do that in a way that helps people have true choice, because and I'm not sure if Daryl and Jason have talked about this at all, but one of the things that we've recognized is we have our choices waiver and we have a family support waiver, and depending on who you talk to, especially if you're a family who doesn't really know anything about our system, if I were to talk to Sarah, she would talk to me all about family support because she's probably not as familiar with the choices waiver. And if I talk to another family member, or I happen to know that there's a CSP in my community, I might call them and they're going to talk to me all about the choices waiver. And I might never learn about the family support services at all. And so how do we do that in a way that there's sort of one door that people can walk through and learn about all the options versus kind of being sent on a pipeline? Because if you, regardless of which direction you kind of get sent on, once you're so far down that hallway, you don't really want to turn around and go back. And so I think what I've heard is that some families might be really far into the choices process of eligibility. They might be hooked up with the case management agency, but by the time they learn about family support, they're so far into that they're like, let's just stick with this and we'll see how it goes and we'll kind of reevaluate later. So we're really hoping that in the future we can provide a better option for people. Like I mentioned earlier, that we've made some connections with partners in policymaking and other advocacy groups, and it does give us a good foundation. We've got a list of family groups in the state. I'm positive it's not comprehensive, but we've got to start. And that we have also incorporated elements of charting the life course and that vision of that concept of a good life, of integrated supports into the requirements of an ISP, and also into the requirements for case managers and family support coordinators for their new employee orientation. So again, how can you play a part? This is really, I think, where the Family Support Council can shine, is sharing what you know and what you hear from people, your own experiences. Share that with us, share it with the community of practice, and that will help kind of drive our activities, our goals, and lead us in the direction of, okay, here's what we're hearing, here's maybe how we can respond. So So again, I just want to take a minute to see if there are any comments or questions or thoughts on this particular goal.
You probably figured out by my exclamation on the group chat.
Yes, I saw that.
Yes, yes. We need to be able to get these families like, here's your choices, not just, hey, let's go down this path, and then all of a sudden like, hey, somebody over there said they have this, and they're like, oh yeah, well, because I hear that all the time, that these families are like, yeah, I was told about choices and it's great and we did this. I mean, but it's not that great because it kind of does this. And then I'll be like, oh, I'm on family support. And they're like, I've never even heard of that. And then you'll say, someone will be like, I'm on family support and it's great, but and someone else will say, well, I'm on choices and I've never heard of that. And I don't quite understand how people are, what the difference is between why some people are hearing about one and some people are hearing about the other, when it's not even like set groups of people, that this group of people is always hearing about this and this group of people is always hearing about this. It's so random, and I don't quite understand why some people are being led down one path and some people are being led down another path, and they should both know about both paths.
Yep, precisely. Any other thoughts or ideas? I mean, I think the conversation from earlier, where with this evening agenda item on council's agenda, on the agendas, I think that could go a long way in kind of helping bridge our groups for all three goals, for and probably a lot beyond those three goals.
Yeah, I would certainly be willing to put an update on the council meetings every week. Just, I don't know, I just can't always put it on there if I don't know, like, I don't know if you are going to be there every week, or if Jay's is going to be able to do that every week, or somebody else will be able to do that every week, or not every week, every meeting. And so I would be certainly willing to put something like this on every meeting, as long as I knew that there was going to be somebody there that would present.
Well, and that's
I
something
think,
that,
like I said, I would send out the minutes that Julie would send from our every other month meeting. I would send them out right after I received them, thinking that, Family Support Council would read them, and then perhaps it would start some discussion at our meeting. Or I think you just need to, we need to make sure that those minutes, no matter who's there, if it's Julie or whoever, that those minutes go out to all of our board members, that all of our board members have an opportunity to review them. And then as an agenda item, just, discussion on minutes, ideas, blah, 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 because those minutes come out all the time and they're very comprehensive. They have all kinds of information in there, not only about the buckets and the star, but about what's happening and what people have learned and what people are doing. So I think just that coming out, and if Julie can send, was it last month the meeting, or I know there's a meeting coming up, but if you can send that to all of these people, and you can get emails from Amber on everything, look at them, and then they'll be two before our next meeting. Send those the minutes of the meeting as they come, so that everybody can read through them, and it'll spark interest in what you want to talk about. And I know I would then send James a note that said, could you please send Julie's minutes out? But, I think it got, she had so many other things to do that it just didn't happen, but you'll be surprised when you read those minutes of what has been talked about or what we have been talking about. It'll spark discussion all on its own. Nobody has to be there to lead you through it. You'll just go, oh, hey, look at there.
right. Well, and I think, the other thing I was going to say is I need to kind of double check that I have everyone's contact information correct, but I have added the Family Support Council members as stakeholders. So I have a state team member list, and then I have a stakeholder list, and I'll double check to make sure that it's accurate and up to date. But we're going to try to do better with sending out the notes to stakeholders, as well as just the people who are on that state team list. So that it may not come directly from me, but I'm delegating some of that community practice leadership to Kimberly Percival. You may see that come from her in the next couple weeks. But, you know, I would also say that, you know, having that idea of a standing item and, you know, I think there probably is some merit in what Pat's saying with, you know, you may not need someone to share it or present it, but if you feel like that would be helpful once you've seen the notes and there's something you want to know more about or discuss more, I think, you know, it doesn't have to be me or Jay's even. It could be Brenda, it could be Elaine. You know, we have lots of community practice members. We have several ambassadors who would be perfectly capable of providing that update and then bringing that back. And then the other thought I had when you were talking, Sarah, was, you know, having at least one family support council member attending those state team meetings, or maybe, you know, if there are questions or things, I was thinking that, oh yeah, it kind of works that same way. I would want that we know we're going to have someone available to kind of provide a family support council update or talk about what the last meeting, or, you know, vice versa. So any other comments or ideas? Okay. All right, well, I'm going to keep moving. This is taking a little longer than I thought it would, but this is really good conversation. So, and we have until noon, so, you know, I think we probably would have been done a little early.
I do like to talk sometimes. I will just warn you.
That's okay. Okay, so I wanted to share this slide, and so again, we want to, what most of our goals are kind of revolving around is that, well, and I would say probably the third goal where, you know, with DD trying to incorporate the concept of trying the life course and get feedback from the community of practice. What we have to recognize is that there are human needs and there are system needs, and sometimes those things are in conflict, or, you know, we have to kind of find the balance between those human needs. So there's the things that the person needs, the person that the family needs, and then there are also, you know, the requirements that we have to follow, that support providers have to follow within their policies. We have to follow within law or administrative rule, and then we have federal requirements and regulations that we have to comply with. And so sometimes those things are in conflict, but or at odds, at least, maybe if not directly in conflict. So one of the goals of the community practice is, and what I think the council would be really helpful in helping identify, is where are those at odds, and how can we sort of find some middle ground. And this particular slide talks about the different touch points between the person and their family and LTSS's long-term services and supports, which in general is, you know, eligibility type services. And so in these places, and, you know, we talked about kind of that intake and assessment, or that front door interaction. What are families struggling with? We need to know that, and then we can kind of say, well, here's what we have to do, but maybe we could change this aspect or this aspect to better meet the needs of families. So that's just one example, and kind of helping find that middle ground where we're able to. And then I wanted to share this, and just kind of as a visual. So, you know, our three goals are really based on, you know, we want to focus on the people who are receiving DD supports and how do we change our policies and practices, etc. We're focused on public and private partnerships, and how do we better collaborate with those partners. And then community and society, and really looking at all families. How do we connect those families? And so this down here, this really talks about the different kinds of strategies that move from the community all the way to eligibility specific. So in community and society, and I was thinking about this the other day. I used to use the analogy of the flu shot when we're kind of talking about this triangle, right? Where if everyone had to go to the hospital to get a flu shot, that they wouldn't have the capacity, right? There wouldn't be enough people there to get every single person a flu shot at the hospital. Or so there are shots available at clinics. People use hand sanitizer, you know, there's hand washing guidelines up in bathrooms all over the place. And this, I was thinking about it in terms of COVID-19 the other day, and just all of the efforts that have occurred to keep capacity available in hospitals in the past few months. From, I mean, there are hand sanitizer stations everywhere, and gloves and masks, and all of those things would go into community and society where we're looking to take some responsibility ourselves to prevent the spread of that. And likewise, there are things that can happen in our communities that would benefit the all. And so, you know, accessible and universally designed homes, for older kids. It's not on this list, but I was in a meeting, or I can't remember who said it, but they were talking about you know, the changing tables for infants in public restrooms, but they have them for infants and small children, but they don't have them anything for adults, and that can really limit opportunities for adults who need that physical assistance to access the community, or they have to limit how long they're out. So those are some of the community and societal, you know, strategies. And then we have, you know, the private and public partnerships. So we have Parent to Parent, we have, you know, Center for Disabilities, we have these family networks, you know, inclusive education, adaptive equipment, and then we have our DD services. And DD services are much like, you know, hospitals in some ways, in that there's not enough money or enough manpower to support everyone who has a disability. So the hope is we can put in, you know, through the community practice work, we can impact our communities and those partnerships and implement some of those universal strategies. So not everyone is needing comprehensive supports or as comprehensive supports. Does that make sense? Okay, so again, how can you get involved? So we are beefing up our community practice webpage on our DD website. We do have some recordings of those hour-long webinars. They're based on each of the life domains. So if you recall, there are 6 life domains. So far we have covered, the first one we did was in January, and we did universal strategies. So it kind of goes deeper into that triangle that I just showed you. And we were scheduled to have one in March, but that was postponed until May. The second one was on safety and security. And the third one was on daily life and employment. And then we'll have one in July on citizenship and advocacy. So these webinars are really designed to show, again, like Sarah, you mentioned, they're about an hour long. We schedule them for over the lunch hour, but they have examples of how you can use a trajectory to focus on safety and security, or to focus on, you know, school life or employment, for example. So we're posting recordings and, you know, slides and handouts on our website. We are hoping to get a listserv set up, probably late summer or early fall, so people can self-sign up for some of those updates, and we can manage that communication a little bit better. And we've already talked a little bit about the Facebook page. We have been working hard to have scheduled posts that are all ready to go, and sharing information from other, you know, Facebook pages of partner agencies and things like that. So again, our state team meets every other month. I have 1 hour in here, but we've actually extended those to be about an hour and a half. But If you're not able to participate in the whole thing, that's, that's fine. And if you'd like to join for as long as you can, you're welcome to join. We hold those at noon in hopes that maybe people can catch it over their lunch break. And, just practice charting the life course. It's really hard to mess up. It is whatever you make it. You can use it in whatever way you want. A couple years ago, I was really stressed out with the holidays, and I did a trajectory on what I wanted next Christmas to look like because I was just holiday time. So it can be done on anything, anytime. You can't mess it up. And again, contribute to that attainment of goals. So give us feedback, share information, and think about where are you connected in your communities, and how can you help us learn about what families in your community and across the state are interested in, or what they're struggling with, what things they need. Okay, so there have been some innovation work groups that the National Community Practice has been hosting. Those are done for this membership year, but the membership year starts over in July. So I'll be sure to share those. They're scheduled for the whole 12 months. So I'll share that schedule when it's available. And then here are a few resources, websites that you can learn a little bit more. And I will say that the lifecoursetools.com website, they do have some of those short snippet examples. And so that might be kind of in the meantime until we get our platform up and running, that might be a good place to check for some of those examples. And that is all I have today. Thank you for lending an ear and providing a lot of really great ideas and input.
Well, thank you, Julie. We really appreciated your going through that. I think it was a really good idea to, since we weren't able to have Jay's here to help us since she's a little bit busy.
Gotcha.
We really appreciated you stepping in and helping us, because this, I think this was a really good idea, and I'm glad that you guys brought this to our attention. And I think it was a really interesting topic, and I could wish we would have done it sooner, but this is really good. Does anybody have any questions for Julie or about the community of practice program? And I agree, Jen, it is a good topic to revisit, and I think it is a good idea to just have it on the agenda, and especially since Pat is part of the group, she can always, I think we can see if we can kind of pick her brain when we have our family support meetings.
Sounds good, Sarah.
Right, doesn't look like we have any questions, so the next topic on our agenda is public comment. I know we have a few people out there that are from the public. Did any of you have any questions that you wanted to bring forward? We can't guarantee that we can answer a lot since Jay's is not here with the state. We can see what we can do to forward you any information if you have questions that we can't discuss or can't answer. We can always take your information, phone numbers, email addresses, and try to get back with you on any information. So if any of you are out there that are hoping to discuss something, let us know.
Okay, so this is Brenda. If nobody else is going to speak up.
Hi, Brenda.
Hi. I guess what I'm curious about is have there been, what issues, I guess, have families contacted the state or anybody else with issues that are specific to COVID? Have there been, you know, are there additional needs that families have had during this that have come to the attention of the state that would impact their family support?
So I'm going to look to Kate a little bit because he regularly is fielding calls and getting, you know, in more direct communication with family members. Kate, do you have any kind of update or?
You know, like surprisingly enough, there hasn't been as much as I thought, if that makes sense. That I was kind of surprised that there hasn't been as much as I was thinking there was going to be.
So I just have a question because I don't know. So if people contacted the state and people were working from home, was there a link to get a hold of somebody, or how did that work? And then I guess I just have to feel like families have been under a lot of stress. And I know that there were some kind of room in within family support for things that families might need that they might not have needed prior to COVID starting.
There was some flexibility, but there really wasn't a ton. The main thing that they did get a little flexible with was the use of some recreational funds to purchase a kind of that iPad, Amazon Fire tablet kind of thing for that social interaction aspect, which they did do that. And there was quite a bit of use of that, families using that. So that was good to see.
Okay. Well, and I would like us to really stretch. I think this COVID has really highlighted the disparity between people who have access to technology and people who don't. And while I think there's going to be a need for a lot more being done via technology. So I think I would like us to be able to see technology as really a necessity. I mean, we've had to have a telehealth visit for Derek, and we have technology to do that, and families need to have access to that. There's going to be planning, probably checking in from coordinators with technology. So I'd really like us to see it's a great recreational piece, but it's also a necessary piece for communication and contact. So I was just wondering if you had contacts from that.
I think to piggyback, this is Pat, to piggyback on Brenda, they're doing a wonderful program with the dance group on Wednesdays for the kids to enjoy. And I know Brittany and I and Sarah and her husband, we were planning on going to Louisiana for a National Down Syndrome symposium. I know Brittany is missing. That's why you guys asked where Brittany was. Well, I didn't bring her up here because I didn't want her to feel bad because she can't be with you guys. And it's like I was talking earlier to Julie, she likes to hug. She likes to be with people. But I guess to what Brenda's saying, I'm looking, at the kids that got let out of school all of a sudden, and an awful lot of families don't have access to internet. They don't have computers at home. When school was being run from a basis of, get onto Zoom and you can do your studies and blah, 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 a lot of those families have disappeared. And I know Sioux Falls is looking for those families that they've never heard from. I mean, there was no internet connection. Verizon offered a cheaper way to do it. I think really family support and the state needs to look at adding a category that is technology, because no one knows how long this is going to go on. No one knows, especially with our state being as rural as it is. I'm sure there's many people out there that their only way of getting to things or being able to attend things is through the internet or through a Zoom meeting, or even a lot of people don't even have cell phones. So I think family support is going to have to look to see how we help people in those instances that really need some kind of connection or some way to find things out. But either because of their standard of living, or, you know, they just never learned, or, you know, whatever. I think family support is going to have to address something like that, just as the schools are going to have to figure out is what happens in September if we can't open up schools again. You know, especially what happens to the kids that are, you know, my daughter is 30, she's no longer in school, and Brenda's son is no longer in school. But what happens to those kids on IEPs who are going to start to regress because they're not in their classrooms learning? I mean, how do we as family support help and address those kids to stay current and you know what I'm saying? That makes sense, Brenda?
A lot of what you're talking about is under the school system. So family support can't take over and say, hey, school, you need to get these guys an iPad, or we're going to get it for you, because that's the school's problem. I mean, if the child's going home for school and they don't have access to school, that's the school's problem. I mean, the school should be providing those iPads. They should be providing data. They should be helping them get Wi-Fi. I mean, that is on the school. So those families need to, and then they need to get on the school. I mean,
I agree with you, Sarah. I was using that as an example.
my son, he came home
and
and we didn't have an iPad at the time, and they had to come to our house and get us set up, because that's the school's problem. They need to be the ones to go in and make sure that the student has what they need. That's part of an IEP.
Sarah, I was using the school system as an example. You know, being a 15-year school board member, I know what the school is responsible for and what they're not. You know, we talk an awful lot about our kids reach 18, 21, and then they drop off. So somebody, and it should be family support, needs to find a way to keep those people, you know, I refer to them as kids because they're kids, but that needs to keep those people in parts of things. Brittany will be attending several doctor's appointments via the internet, because I'm not taking her into the office. I'm not even going to go into the office for my own physicals. But how many people are out there with kids with medical issues that are adults that aren't part of the school system? You know, the school system doesn't have to provide anything for kids that need to go to doctor's appointments but aren't going to be able to go because they're scared of COVID. That just isn't going to happen.
So one thing that I would probably suggest is, you know, and that's where, when Julie talked earlier about, we have the system needs and we have human needs. And so the system has the parameters and the rules around and all that kind of thing. But when we have people have needs, you know, that, let's say a child needs a telehealth visit, but that isn't a school issue, but they have a school issue that they need to use technology for. So I hope we can look at things as saying, let's not make the family be caught in the middle, and really have an approach that, you know, talks about, you know, that at least looks at kind of holistically what's going on in a person's life at that time. I have one other thing that there isn't probably an answer for today, but I just wanted to bring it up and ask people to think about it. And I guess I'll toss it to Kate and Julie for thinking about it as well. As in the rules, I believe it says family support is a self-directed type of program. And okay, and then it also includes in there that families have budget authority. And I guess I would like to know kind of what that means for families. You know, if families have, through their planning, figure out some of what their needs are and make requests, but I understand it has to meet, it has to be, oh, I can't even think of the word right now, but it has to fit within the waiver. But I think too, we have to recognize, what is that budget authority? If my son has dollars left over, you know, certain public dollars left over, and it fits in that category, and that's what he prioritizes, what does that mean for us as a family? Or what does it mean for him as an adult? So not expecting an answer today, but I guess I just wanted to bring it up to have discussion, because it's an important piece of the family support.
Yeah, I agree, Brenda, and I'm glad that you're not expecting an answer today because I don't think that I would be comfortable answering that right on the spot. But yeah, I've made a note of it, and I think I saw Kate taking some notes too. So
Well, and I think it would be worthwhile for the council to have a discussion about it. You know, what does that mean? And are we able to leverage our dollars in a way that are helpful to individuals and for families as a whole? So, and that's just, you know, and I'm not saying that that's carte blanche, but I am saying that who sometimes families or the individual, what they identify, should that be driving then what happens or how they use those dollars? So I can find it in the rule again and I can send it to you, but I just think things like that would be worthwhile because I think we need to empower families to, we want families to make decisions, and when we do, then we sometimes don't support the decisions they make. And again, there has to be a balance of compliance and human need, family need, person need. So I'll stop with that.
well, I want to go back to a question that you asked earlier, and then the conversation kind of moved on. But so while DDD staff were out of, working from home, we all had our desk phones forwarded to our work cell phones. And so we were just getting calls that way. So, I mean, we were still pretty accessible. And for people who might not have had our direct lines, Jenny Krieger, our senior secretary, was fielding calls, and then she would typically, send us an email regarding a call we needed to return. And again, for Cade, who has probably a higher volume of phone calls than I do, I don't know if that was the same process, but that was my experience, that Jenny would just email me and say, so-and-so called, here's their phone number.
Okay, that's good.
Yep.
Good, that's nice to know. Thank you.
No problem. Okay. Anything else?
Anyone else from the public for public comment? Do we have anything that the council wanted to mention? Not really as a discussion type of thing, but just anybody have anything they want to bring up from the council before we adjourn?
I have one thing. This is Pat. I've been on the EVV system now for about 6 weeks. And I just wanted to say how much I enjoy it, how much I like it. It's easy to use. I think the families out there that will have to be on it will find it not as scary or as cumbersome as, at least as I thought it was going to be in the beginning. I've been working with John and Judy, and they've been great in training me, and we've had a few glitches and we're ironing out some bugs, which is really good now instead of when we go live. And I guess right now, you probably don't know, Julie, but I think it's kind of up in the air because of all that's happening within the department when it's actually going to go live. But my family support coordinator is being trained for her part of the piece, and I'm being trained for mine. But I know John said the actual live date has now been put on hold. But it is a nice system and it does work really well. So that's my only comment.
Sure. So, Pat, just a quick question. So was that just kind of like a piloting, testing sort of thing? EVV is one of the things I'm definitely trying to get kind of caught up on.
Right.
I know what it is. I get the concepts, but as far as the, in the weeds sort of stuff. So you were just piloting?
Yes, basically it's a fake. It's not what Brittany and I will really be on when you go live. It's just what they've set up for us.
Great.
And they've set up my family support coordinator, Nikki, she's got her part that she'll be looking at. And so we've been sort of experimenting with how I put in things and hours and time and picking up bugs, and so it's just the pilot program. And then I'm assuming when we go live, they will they actually go into the system and change it for me to the live portion, and then I'll set in my own password and stuff. But yeah, so yeah, we found some bugs in it, and when my screen will freeze up over certain things, and so it's been nice to do this, and it's been nice to do it in a slow way where you're not scared that you're putting in something that is going to really screw up everything, that you can put it in, but John can fix it if you really do screw it up. So yeah, it's neat. I like it.
Great. I did want to mention, that is required to be implemented by January 1st, 2021. We were hoping to implement July 1st. That clearly has been pushed back at least until Jay's is back from leave. So we're probably looking at a fall to winter kind of situation.
This is Bridget. Are there any tentative plans for the next meeting? I mean, are we thinking in person? Does anybody have any thoughts? It's supposed to be September, I believe, right? The end of September.
You kind of cut out in the middle. I didn't hear all of your questions.
I think we'll have to approach the September meeting, in-person Zoom meeting, phone call as it happens, because I think with everything going on right now, it's just so touch and go that we could say like, yeah, I hope it's in person. Yeah, let's totally do it in person. And then in August, everybody goes back to school and COVID goes shoo. So I think I would say I think we all hope it's going to be in person, but I don't think we can make any guarantees at this point.
Of course not. I was just wondering more is like, do we need to reserve this far ahead of time just in case we can meet in person?
And I honestly don't remember where we were going to be. Were we planning on Aberdeen?
The Hills.
Oh, Black Hills?
Yeah.
I don't remember the date. Anybody have
So
the
I can look up the date, but I think we'd have to wait till we get closer to even determine if we should even make reservations. Looks like September 18th and 19th. So
Sarah, what is happening with everything? I mean, Jay's is on maternity. I understand that, but are we? I guess I don't know what's going on, and perhaps I don't need to, but I'm assuming someone will replace Daryl.
I haven't heard anything. I don't know anything. So I just know that my emails to Daryl suddenly stopped going through. So I honestly don't know anything.
Okay. Well, I congratulations to Jay's. I'm just it would be nice if COVID was gone and we had a new person and we can all meet in Spearfish, I guess is what my prayer is.
Yeah, I don't know if Jay's is taking over for Daryl or if someone's replacing Daryl.
So I'm acting as interim director for the time being until a new director is hired. Okay. And so that the position is open and posted now. And so I believe it closes in June 18th. And so that, the speed at which we can hire someone will be dependent on a lot of factors, including qualified applicants in that first round of opening and how long it takes to do interviews and how long a person might have to give notice, to their current employer and be able to start. So a lot of things are kind of in the balance right now, but if there's something that you typically would have asked Daryl or Jay's, I would say Kate and I will be your contacts until further notice, until you see an announcement that a director has been hired or Jay's is back from leave. And I believe she's planning to come back at the beginning of September. So.
Can Kate introduce himself? Because I've never
sure.
met him at all, in fact, when I saw his picture up there, I thought maybe that was another board member. So if he would just tell us who he is and what he does, that would be great for me because I have no clue.
Sure.
All right, not a problem, Pat. Kate Anderson. I live here in Pierre, lived here for quite a while. I'm older than I look. I'm 35. And and then let's see what else. What I do for over at the division is I kind of manage the respite care program, the Strengthening Families program, and then also I'm a program specialist for Family Support 360. I have about 4 agencies right now, and I'll lose one once Bianca comes back. But I graduated from USD with a psychology degree. I was a social worker for a year, and then I was also a 911 dispatcher for almost 10 years. So that's kind of my background.
Well, it's nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's good to meet you. Good to have you at the meeting. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for joining us on a great Saturday morning.
Well, I apologize. And, you know, Kate and I talked yesterday, and I kind of forgot that the last call was a phone call. And so you wouldn't have seen him or, you know, maybe even necessarily heard his voice, but he did participate in the last meeting. And Kate, you started with our office in February. Is that right?
Yep, right at the beginning of February.
Yeah.
Wow.
So Kate is relatively new, and I'm, you know, I know enough about family support to be kind of dangerous, but the details, I've got a learning curve, but we're working on it. So yeah, I appreciate, I mean, any questions that you guys have, contact him or I, and I will express my gratitude in advance for patience as we kind of make it through this time.
When did you say Jays will be back?
Early September.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to mention something. Sorry, my phone just made some noise. When we moved, we decided we moved to a different place in Canton, but we moved to a more kind of a bigger neighborhood. And Max immediately decided that he needed to go to the neighbor's house and disappear. And so I contacted our family support gal and said we need a GPS unit. And we went through various ones, and family support purchased us this GyroBit. It's this big, and then it comes with this little pocket that's actually pin locked, and you have to use a magnet to open it so that you can pin it to his clothing. And it's been a lifesaver because it tracks him down to the tiniest little spot. Like I can see he's at the neighbor's house. I can't see that he's upstairs playing video games with one of the kids, but so this is something that family support has purchased for us. It's not cheap, but they purchased it through whatever funds, you know, I don't think we really even had the funds for it, but they figured out how to purchase it for us. We had to pay for a monthly data plan for it, but I would suggest this if you have a family member who is like mine, who just disappears. So just wanted to bring that up, that this is something that family support purchased, and it's a lifesaver. So
Brittany was a disappearer too, but what we had was not as slick as that.
yes, it's worth its weight in gold right now. So if people are thinking, you know, I can't think of things that would help my family member, you know, just go to your family support coordinator and say, I need something. What do you have? What can you tell me about? They have probably seen a lot of different things. And so, you know, we went through the various kinds that are offered, and all this does is a tracker. I don't have a way to like talk to him on it or listen to where he's at, which I didn't really need that. I just wanted to know where he was. And a lot of those trackers that have the recording ability, they're not allowed in schools. But this one is, so. Anybody else from council want to talk about anything? And Jen says, yeah, she goes, what a great idea, especially since we want them to have their freedom. Right. I don't want to say, Max, you cannot go to the neighbor's house. Not at all. But I want to know when he's there because he doesn't tell me. He just disappears. So, and they're okay as long as the neighbor's okay with it. They have been so far. But yeah. Anyone else want to have their say before we adjourn? All right. Well, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
I'll
This is
second.
Michelle, I'll
Oh,
second.
sorry. Go ahead, Michelle.
Oh,
All right.
Michelle.
I have a motion and a second, and all those in favor say aye.
Hi.
aye.
Aye.
I,
Michelle, I do have to ask, where are you at? Because that wall is beautiful.
That's a picture.
Is it really?
Yeah, here, just
Oh.
a minute. Let me see if I can, hang on, just a second. Let's see if I can take my virtual background off. Hang on, 2 seconds. See?
Oh, okay. I'm not smart enough apparently to know that. That's